Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Giamello. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of people in my network, colleagues, old and new, friends, so many great leads that I'll be interviewing to get to the cusp of those books, the value behind those books. I want to see which book it is that's contributed the most to who they are as a person, how they do business, how they live their life. I cover three types of books, categories of books, books that they're sharing with me that I haven't read myself, books that we've both read, whether specifically for the series or not. And then when I'm interviewing publishers and authors about the books putting out there into the market, and I want to learn more about the message that they're sharing and get that out there. So for today, I am going to have an author, and my guest today is Hesha Abrams. And Hesha is an internationally acclaimed master attorney mediator with a unique talent to manage big egos and strong personalities and a keen ability to create synergy amongst the most diverse personality types, driving them towards agreement. By holding the calm, she uses innovative approaches to deal making, specializing in crafting solutions for complex and difficult matters. During a 30-plus year career, Hesha has resolved thousands of cases, both large and small, in every conceivable area, creating settlements worth billions of dollars, saving clients billions more, including a dispute over the secret recipe for Pepsi. Holding the Calm is her insightful, practical, and easy-to-use toolkit forged in the trenches of resolving human conflict. Its secrets will enable you to know how to approach every situation to prevent explosions, disarm conflicts, and reduce drama. Holding the Calm is Hesha's contribution to help make our world, businesses, and relationships less acrimonious and more harmonious. And I had met Hesha through Art Networks. We had a conversation going back and forth about her book and my series. And I think this is a very timely conversation. Just with everything going on in the world, I've realized just how much we're not good at storytelling, and that plays into conversations, that plays into communication. So I'm so grateful to have Hesha here. So Hesha, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. What a good thing you're doing, getting people to read. How great is that? All knowledge.
Trying, and I think it comes. The biggest thing I find with books is the books are amazing, but just people vouching for those books, whether they're an author or not, whether they're an author like yourself, just kind of, I like hearing the tone from the author. What is it that you put into this book? Why did you put that in there? To give it a little bit more urgency. But yeah, you're exactly right. Conversations, storytelling, book writing, getting those messages out there.
All of it. It's always the question of whether the juice is the lemon is worth the squeeze.
Absolutely.
But
Have you had those books that you've bought them and then been like,
I read a book and it's like, okay, guys, this was an article. And you just try to make it into a book so you could get tenure or something like that. It wasted my time. My time is very valuable. And I read a lot and I can skim. And that's one of the things I did with my book is that I've made 10,000 speeches in my life, and I'm not exaggerating. And people are always saying, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. Who had time to write a book? I was actually doing the work, And 2 years ago, I had a hysterectomy and, knock on wood, all is fine. And I was grounded for 6 weeks. And I said, I'm going to write my book. And it poured out of me. And what was interesting is I had a number of publishers that were the academic presses say this is great, but reject it because it wasn't fancy enough, academic enough. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, people need to know what to do right now without getting a master's degree or taking some master's class or taking some fancy whatever. What can I do right now to make my life a little easier and deal with my idiot brother-in-law or my stupid boss or my horrible neighbor or my kid's teacher? It takes 1,000 people to build a building, and one idiot with a stick of dynamite knocks the whole thing down. So how can you be preventative? And that's literally why I wrote this. And I insisted it be a little cheap paperback. So it was easy and it could be digested quick. And when you get out of it, you go, all right, I'm going to do some of that stuff. Make your life a little easier.
Yeah, it's practical, like a little manual. Not like when you order a book without looking at the number of pages that it takes up, and then you get it and it's like a tome. It's like, 5 Bibles put together. I like when authors can kind of just collapse all their information into something that's digestible. No quality is lost because they're hitting you with like the nuggets that are like the high value pieces of information and experience. But Hesha, before we jump into the book, who are you today? Can you provide a little insight into the work that you're doing today, just so we can kind of start getting to know you before we jump into the book?
Oh, sure. I'm an attorney mediator, and I joke that I'm like an attorney who reformed, because I used to be a litigator. And there's a big joke that one lawyer in a town starves to death and two make a very good living. And it's good, though. What I also tell people, especially when I get into a big case and people are fussing and fighting, is that in many parts of the world, they resolve conflict by, I'm going to burn down your store, or I'm going to kidnap your kid, I'm going to break your legs. That's not just in the movies. That's in half the world, maybe a third of the world for sure. And so in civilized countries, we resolve conflict with words, and we have court systems, and we have arbitration and mediation systems. It's eminently civilized.
Mm-hmm.
And I am honored to be part of that system. And my practice is international. I've mediated all over the world. And I don't care your ethnicity, your race, your gender, your socioeconomic class. We are all really the same when it comes to conflict. We want to win. We don't want to feel stupid, and we don't want to lose. It's really as simple as that. And this is what I do. I mean, I do for the big behemoths, the Googles and the FaceTimes and the Facebooks and the, Yahoo and IBMs and Verizons and the big guys. And then I tell you, doing a small case where whose cat peed on the rug, it's just as hard. I've done churches fighting amongst themselves, communities, giant communities fighting over. Did a case where teaching Bible in the public schools, and it was ripping this community apart. So I thought, I have had this laboratory of human conflict. I know stuff that works, not what should work or what you want to work or a lovely win-win theory of working, but what actually works when the other person is hateful and vile and disgusting and you're at loggerheads. What actually works to move that thing forward.
So what made you
in this little thing?
What made you jump from litigator to mediator?
Back in the day, I've been doing this a long time, 35 years. I had a kid, and now being a working high-end professional with a child is hard. Back then, as a woman, it was impossible. It was really challenging. And I loved doing what I did, but I felt like it was challenging the motherhood stuff, and I was challenging the litigator stuff. And I found out about mediation, and I went, wait a minute. You talk to people for a living and you solve problems? Okay, this is awesome. And in the beginning, I did everything wrong. I told people what I thought. Mm-hmm. I educated them. I gave them information, and you still can settle probably half the cases if you do that. And then I learned over time, there's a big joke that women always talk about how men mansplain to them and they don't like it. Men don't like it either when they get it from women. No one likes to be told what to do, or that they're wrong, or you're stupid. Let me educate you. And let me tell you what the facts are, because clearly you don't know. That never, ever, ever works. And that's what people do, which is just ridiculous. So I had to develop new tricks, new tools. I've read every neuroscience book I can get my hands on. I've watched TED Talks and lectures, and how do human beings tick? And just one quick example I like to give people, and this is proven with neuroscience across every age, ethnicity, race, socioeconomic, gender, all of it. Apples, 25 cents each. How many would you buy? I don't know. I like apples. I buy 2 apples, 4 for $1. You get a 35% boost in sales. Now you want an extra 10% boost in sales? Limit 2. That's just dumb. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. And it works with everybody. The question when you're doing conflict resolution is, I can't talk to you the way I talk. I can't resolve the problem the way I want it resolved. I have to actually see you. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I should speak to you differently, shouldn't I? Are you a data person or a feeling relationship person? I should speak to you differently. We don't take the time to speak into the ears that are hearing us, which is chapter 1 in the book. Changes everything. And it's such a simple thing. changes everything.
Yeah. Hesha, to understand a little bit about you, what did your career path, or when you were in your education, early education, how did your career path start? What did you go into? How did you start off on that path? Was it family? Was it, just randomness? Didn't know what to do at first? What did your career path, whether it was education or not, what did that begin? What did that look like in the beginning?
Well, I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family. So it wasn't good. And so I knew that it's not what I wanted. And I was always told I talk too much. And so, I should be a lawyer. And I was actually told, it was ridiculous and horrible as that is that I was too smart and no man would ever want me. And so think about the sickness and twistedness of those kind of messages that didn't just come in me. I know plenty of women that misogyny gets inbred. And so I knew that I had to be smart and I had to make a name for myself and do something. And I like reading, I like thinking. So law school was sort of an easy thing for me. And when I was in law school, I wanted to be justice. So I thought I would do criminal law till I realized I'd be representing criminals all the time, which was not what I wanted to do. And then I thought, environmental law. I'm going to do this for the underdog. And I graduated at the top of my class. So I was recruited by an environmental law firm. And I was so dumb. I didn't even know how to research it or look at it. And they represented the bad guys. They were on the wrong side. So I was like, okay, this is not what I want to do. And I did a lot of fumfering and, bumping around until I got into business litigation, which I really liked and enjoyable. And then, as I said, got into mediation. And now, like I said, I've done every possible case from breast implants and wrongful death to billion-dollar corporate behemoths, going to town over several $billion, giant pharmaceutical companies. The bigger the cases are, the more interesting and the more fun they are, because you have to really move through probably 50 people with the psychological, how many apples do you want to buy thing?
Mhm.
And nobody wants to lose. Everyone wants to win, and no one wants to look stupid. So all that psychobabble stuff is critical in all conflict resolution. And that's the laboratory I've gotten to play with by, what my career has taken me. And now apparently I'm an author and I'm getting to talk to cool people like you.
Actually, my next question is always just based on what you've seen in your life, in your work. How would you define leadership? What does it look like to you, just in your path to now?
That is such a great question because there's so many leadership companies out there that do good stuff, like the Ken Blanchard companies. And Ken wrote the foreword to my book. He's awesome. And what I would really say, besides all the skills that leaders have to have, I think your give a darn meter has to work. That's what I really think. And what happens is that people know if they're cared about, if you're looking after their goodwill, if you're looking after their well-being, or if they just a cog in your machine. And it's not hard to do. You can still have high profits, high retention of employees, high productivity and efficiency. But if your employees feel that you have a give a darn meter and you care about them, my God, they'll walk over broken glass for you.
Mm.
There's so much that can actually happen. And so many leaders are really smart people. They're good at math. They're good at crunching numbers. They're good at doing the analysis or the manufacturing or pulling it through. And it's all left brain stuff. They forget the right brain stuff that people really, like we joke about HR, human resources. It's because it really is human resources.
Mhm.
And retaining employees is so critical for the advancement. And people don't think about it. And what's the one thing that can destroy an organization more than anything? Conflict. People don't know how to handle it. And I like to use this analogy. We've all dropped spaghetti sauce on the counter. You take a wet sponge, you wipe it up. It's no big deal. You leave it overnight, you're scraping it off with a spatula. You leave it 3 or 4 months, and it's old and moldy and nasty. And that, my friends, is conflict. So why don't we wipe it up when it's wet with a sponge? It makes it so easy. We don't know how. We're afraid. We're worried that we're going to make it worse, and we just hope it'll go away. And my friends, one of the things I did on the book, the title's longer than I would have liked, The Secret to Resolving Conflict and Diffusing Tension, because 100% of conflict, 100% of it starts with tension. And the tension can be her, or it can be, and you don't even know. So that's why this stuff is so important. Let's wipe the spaghetti sauce up with a sponge, at the beginning. And I want people to know how to do it. And leaders need to do that. And leaders don't know how to do it. So that's why some of these tricks are simple and easy. And that's what I want good leaders to do. And quite frankly, I want good followers to do that. There's a guy named Ryan Leake, who I really like. And I was on his podcast, and he wrote a book on followership. He said, because everyone talks about being a good leader. Not everyone's a leader, and not everyone should be a leader. How do you be a good follower? Something to where you are worthy of a good leader. I thought that was a beautiful way of thinking about it too.
Yeah, I love that idea that that followership is just as important. You don't hear it mentioned too often, you don't hear it talked about too often, but I think that's a great idea to put out there. Hesha, in terms of just curious in your work, I'm assuming maybe you've seen this, but have there been instances where you've had difficult leaders to work with, but that ended up coming around? I mean, did you see you must have seen so many evolutions in the leaders that you've worked with.
Indeed. Indeed. And, a good leader has to be flexible. And again, I use introvert and extrovert as the example just because it's so easy and it's so simple. A good leader knows the ears they're speaking into. They don't treat everyone the same. They don't talk to everybody the same. And they're able to make you feel seen and heard. And it's not hard. You don't need a big skill class to be able to do that. It's just being aware of your impact, speaking into the ears that are hearing you. One of the things I used to, tell my kids when they were growing up, the difference between intent and impact. Intent only matters really if you're looking for blame or in a criminal case. Otherwise, your intent's irrelevant. It's the impact on me. You knock over my coffee cup and everything spills. Well, I didn't mean to. That's not fixing the cup or getting the stain out of my clothes. And what we do is we focus on intent. And that honestly is pretty much 90% irrelevant. It's impact. And if you focus on impact, your people will love you. They will absolutely turn around and love you.
Thank you for that breakdown. Now, why don't we hop into your book, Hesha? How did you gave us background on yourself. I read your bio. You filled in the gaps of just education and how you jumped from one practice or field that you wanted to cover to the next. How did the book come to be? Was it was there something that triggered the idea for the book? So many authors have these ideas kind of percolating in their minds, but then something comes along that really pushes them off the edge to take that jump into a book. What's the story of your book? If you could just go into that.
Well, I have to give credit to my editor, Steve, at Barrett Kohler Publishing. I wanted to write this book, and it was going to be about how to negotiate better, how to resolve conflict better, simple tools, and how to do this. And when we were talking about it, he said to me, "Why are you good at what you do?" And I did a bunch of words. And he goes, no. Why are you good at what you do? And I did more words. And he said to me, "I want you to go home and I want you to think about it and be able to give it to me in one or two words, one or two sentences." And I really had to think about it. And I realized that what I do is I hold the calm. That's what I do for people. And he said, "That's the book. That's what people need." Because never in the history of calming down has anyone ever calmed down by being told to calm down. Never. And the reason for that comes from a place in neuroscience where if you're upset and I say to you, calm down, calm down. If you're upset, you are already feeling powerless. The amygdala, which is the fear and negativity center of the brain, is already firing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're feeling powerless. So what I'm going to do is take power and go, I'm going to tell you what to do because clearly you're out of control and don't know how to do it. So I'm going to tell you to calm down, or I'm going to tell you to take a deep breath. All that does to the amygdala is go, wow, even worse. So what someone really needs is for you to hold the calm for them. That lets them calm down. And you do it for yourself. When your amygdala gets triggered, I literally will say to myself, I'm holding the calm, I'm holding the calm, I'm holding the calm. It takes 2 seconds. And it says to my amygdala, you've got options, you've got choices, you are not powerless. Powerlessness leads to all kinds of bad and terrible things. So the first thing to do is to get some kind of power. And that's why one of the things I do when I'm mediating is I give people power, even if it's small. What issue should we discuss first? Where do you want to sit? When should we break for lunch? What music should we listen to? How should we handle this? It doesn't really matter what it is. If you give people power, their amygdala can calm down. And now the prefrontal cortex that's underneath the forehead can actually engage and we can discuss. And so I wanted to get this out to people in an easy way of little tips and tricks to do today. And that was really my intent. And, we can't, no one's civil anymore. I try, John, you espouse something. I try one thing. It doesn't work. You're an idiot. Boom, done. Like there's no continuing on. And that's just really sad, really sad. And doesn't need to be. Doesn't need to be.
Hesha, quick tangent before we go into kind of your overview of the book, because that's my next question. What do you think has to change in society? How far back do we have to go in education? Where is it that the seed needs to be planted, in your opinion, to get society to the point where when they're professionals, not everything's going to be kumbaya and perfect. We know that. But that we can kind of reverse what society in our country has been like the last 7-8 years. Where do you think that needs to start? Have you thought about that? Have you worked in that area? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have thought about it a lot. And I have a chapter in the book called Creating Small Winnable Victories. Things like that don't happen with big epochs and big proclamations. They're all small winnable victories. So if leaders start talking about responsibility as opposed to rights, what happened in our society is we are only talking about rights, but we don't talk about responsibility anymore. And those two things have to go hand in hand. So if that happens from leaders to employees, from teachers to students, from parents to children, from HOA associations to the communities they have, if that can start becoming part of the conversation, yes, your rights. And what are your responsibilities? What do you give back? What happens? It's sort of the President Kennedy, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country thing. That's really what we've lost. And I think that one thing has contaminated everything. And if that one thing could be solved, it would be magnificent. And my personal thing that I would do if I were, queen of the world, or president of the United States, or, a majority leader in Congress, is I think we need to have service. I'm a big, big believer that every single 18-year-old in this country should do service to their country. It can be in the military. It can be in national parks. It can be in inner city schools. It can be environmental cleanup. I don't care what it is. But this country is free, and nobody pays for that freedom except for our military. And they're too small a percentage, and they're not really given their due the way they should be. And so if every single 18-year-old had to contribute, I think our society would be totally different. Now, of course, that's wanting chocolate cake not to be fattening. That's such a big thing that would have to have both parties would have to come together. There'd be some cataclysmic something, but it would work. And until we can get to that, if we just have all leaders of any kind start talking about responsibility, I think it'll change the conversation. I really do.
No, I think that's a great idea. It's funny. It reminds me of something I saw on LinkedIn. Somebody posted a video. It was in an Asian culture. It was maybe kids that were maybe kindergartners, first graders. And it was kind of, there was like 2 rows of chairs, and it was set up. You could tell like it was like a bus or something, that they were mimicking a bus. And there were some students that were playing passengers, and then somebody would step on the bus. So they'd step between the chairs, and one was one was pretending to be an old person, and another person was pretending that another child, like their own classmates. Another one was pretending to be a pregnant woman, or it was somebody that needed some kind of help or service. And it was to kind of demonstrate that these kids were standing up and giving their chair to the pregnant woman or to the elderly, whoever it may be. So it's amazing to incorporate that kind of, like you said, responsibility. It's not just the right, but infusing it that young, that, you should be of service to your fellow human being.
I love it.
I don't know where that split happens, where we, it depends on where we grow up, the family we grow up in, but where you don't have to be responsible, or you don't have to look out for the rights or the safety or the well-being of your fellow human beings in your community. It's I think it is a different time now, but I love that idea of right versus responsibility. Like, yeah, you have the right, you have the freedom, but what are you going to pay into it of service specifically? I think that sets the tone for if these kids learn it that young, even at 18,
Yep.
the trajectory into their career,
Yep.
into their relationships is just something completely different than what we've seen so far.
I agree with you totally, totally. And, again, I'm a pragmatist. So I like the big stuff, but small winnable victories. That's how things actually get done. That's how laws are passed. That's how sausage is made. I mean, that's how it is really done. And so kudos to those people for doing that and teaching those children. And, freedom is wonderful, but it has to go hand in hand with responsibility. And we have that's what's happening in our society right now. So anyone who's hearing this, who grooves on that and thinks that's good, start implementing that in your own life, in your own family, in your own workplace, in your own environment. We used to have knitting clubs and book clubs and Kiwanis and Rotaries and JCs and churches and mosques and synagogues, and we had more communal stuff. The communal stuff has really dissipated, because when you're part of a community, if I act like an idiot or I'm selfish, you're not going to accept me. I'm not going to belong. So there's a certain governor on behavior, where it either comes altruistically because I want to do it, or because I have fear of loss that I'm going to be rejected. Either way, you get the behavior you want. We've lost that through social media and internet and all the other things. So the only way I know to really start working on that is in my sphere of influence. This is what I'm doing. And your sphere of influence, John, look what you're doing. Everyone who listens to this, you don't have to do you don't have to change the world.
Yeah.
Pick your sphere of influence and start talking like this and acting like this. And literally, high tide raises all ships. That's what starts to happen.
Yeah, I love how you stress small wins, because I think everybody, I'm overgeneralizing, but it's almost like people sit on the sidelines because they don't think that they can contribute, because they can't contribute something massive, life-changing, life-altering. But it's those little gestures, those little things that they can do, small ripple effects, like you're giving examples of, that would just set the pace. It would set the tone for relationships, for helping their community. But I think people are just so tentative because they feel they can't make a difference. I think, I don't know. It's just one of those things, again, going back to how were you taught to serve? When is it really put into our minds?
Right.
We're told when you're in school, if you want to go to college, you should have extracurriculars. So go out and do stuff, whether it's sports or go volunteer or show you have a job, but it's to get to college, instead of kind of, these are the things that make you wholesome. Right. These are the things that make you a well-rounded person. But it was always to get to that next goal of college or whatever it may be. But no, these are the things that, make you human and make you a part of a greater community.
Well, all the big schools and all the psychology departments have done tons of studies on how do you be happy and what are the happiest people. Hands down, in every one, 100% of the time, the happiest people are part of a community where they contribute. It's as simple as that. It's not what you get, it's what you give that creates happiness. I mean, we have people that are just, we are wealthy beyond measure in this country, if you look at all of human civilization and if you look at this world. And yet 25% of our population is on antidepressants. People self-medicate with marijuana and alcohol and other drugs, or sex, or shopping, or, crazy social media stuff. We are the unhappiest, sickest society, and yet we are wealthy and free. And I swear to God, to everybody, if you don't want to read all the studies like I've read them, if you want to be happy, give, volunteer, contribute. It changes everything. When I see people that are lonely or depressed, I say, you know what you could do? Work for one of those literacy programs where some, some immigrant or some person who never learned to read needs someone to sit next to them and help them read. And then what happens is that Juan Carlos is really upset when you don't show up on Wednesday. So somebody cares about you. You matter to somebody. As human beings, we need to matter. And what's happened in our society is we become a throwaway culture and trash with fast fashion, fast thinking, all the junk, and then humans become trash. And now with AI and robots and all those, you got a lot of people thinking they're going to be discarded. So you have to find ways that you matter to others. That is what makes a healthy life. And that happens in every study ever done everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything revelatory, really.
Yeah. Hesha, can you provide an overview, a general overview of your book to kind of give people a sense of that path that you're taking your reader on?
Sure. So the book is designed with 20 chapters with 20 tools. Each one has stories, anecdotes, sentence stems, ways that you can implement it. I really thought that there'd be 3 or 4 fan favorites. And what's turned out is I get letters all the time saying it's changed my life, or I did this, or I did that, and how it impacted them. Everybody has their own thing that they like better, which really proves my thesis. Every single person is the same, and every single person likes a different flavor of ice cream. So why would I give you chocolate when you're a vanilla person? It's so easy to look at you and figure out, oh, you're vanilla. Okay, that's what you'll like. Oh, you want sherbet. Okay, it's not hard. So I wrote the book that way. And then what I also did is initially I had people telling me they wanted me to write a workbook to go with it because you get a second book. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I did a free discussion guide in the back of the book, and it tracks the book so that any group or organization can buy, 10 books or 1,000 books, doesn't matter, for their group. And then you have someone lead small little groups. You go through the questions and you discuss it with each other. Because what will happen is someone in the group will say, oh, that was stupid. That was ridiculous. And someone else will say, oh, that was very meaningful to me. Really? Why? Now all of a sudden you understand each other. It's team building without having to go to a theme park or a zip line or some of that external nonsense stuff. It's team building where you get to know each other and understand each other by asking simple few little questions and easy things. And like one of the things I like to, give our listeners is I like to do the advanced course. Let's say, you're dealing with somebody hateful, really horrible. Like you feel powerless, you are angry, you feel oppressed. I mean, it's really bad. So the first thing obviously is get away if you can. But let's say you can't. It's your landlord, it's your boss, it's your brother-in-law, like you're stuck, right? So you've got to change your paradigm. One question helps you do it. You look at the person and you say to yourself, would this person pull my kid out of a burning car? 95% of the time, the answer to that is yes. Okay, there's something redeeming about him or her, right? Now I look through that filter. Neuroscientists have proven that we have something called confirmation bias. If I think you're an idiot, I have a filter. Everything you say is idiotic. If I think you're mean, evil, selfish, narcissistic, sociopathic, whatever labels we tend to dump on people, that's the filter through which I'll see everything. Okay, that's a choice. But if I have to deal with you, I'm just making myself miserable. I have to see another side of you. I have to call forth that other side of you. That's one of the tricks on having to do that. Now, does it make chocolate cake not fattening? No, right? No. But does it make it bearable that you can deal with it? And that's what I wanted to do with the book, is it is practical advice that you can use today in any situation you happen to have to either prevent it, wipe the spaghetti sauce up when it's wet, or if it's old and moldy and gross and you got to deal with it, ways to deal with it.
Well, that's like the the thing I mentioned a couple minutes ago about people not taking steps in anything or doing anything because they don't think they can make a huge impact. It's like just get started. Even putting yourself in the mindset, this isn't going to perfect your life. It's not going to take out all conflict of your life. It's not going to make, kumbaya moments all throughout your day and week. But just get into that mindset of reading this type of material, studying these kinds of lessons, going out there and practicing. I mean, I'm assuming that there are things in your book where you can practice on a daily basis, because if you think about all the people we communicate on a daily basis, even if you're not having a conflict with somebody, I'm assuming there are tips in your book for just how to manage conversations.
Yes, indeed. And so I will tell people validation is the WD-40 of our universe. Okay. It's the Vaseline on the tracks of anything. So again, there's easy stuff, of course. I always want to do with the hard stuff. Let's say I'm in a meeting and you're a blowhard and you won't stop talking or saying stupid things or taking credit for my ideas or fill in the blank. How do I stop you? This is a surefire way that works every single time. John, you know what I admire about you? You stop talking. You don't say another word. You are, moi? What? I want to hear what you have to say, not another word.
Yeah.
And now, in that interaction around that conference table or the family table or the schoolroom, who's got the power in that interaction? You. Now I say something. It has to be true and authentic. I admire your passion, your commitment, your responsibility, your dedication, your attempt to see both sides of an issue, even though they haven't, because now they have to, because you set them up that way. And use whatever verb you want. You know what I admire about you? You know what I like about you? You know what I respect about you? In a family situation, you know what I love about you? If I'm having a conflict with my husband and we see things differently, we don't really even have him anymore, because the first thing I will say to him is, you know what I love about you? He just melts. Who's going to fight with somebody who says to them, you know what I love about you, in the midst of something, and then things get resolved? Same thing with your boss. You know what I admire about you, boss? Your strength, your commitment, your authenticity, your desire to get it right. Whatever is important to that person, you change the entire interaction in that instant. And now that person looks at you as friend and not foe. And guess what? We do deals with our friends, not with our foes.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Just that's one little simple piece of the 9 million things I've got in this book that you play with, and then it just becomes a part of your life. And no one's going to say to you, oh my goodness, John, you're so good. You hold the calm. What they're going to say is, wow, people listen to you. Wow.
Yeah.
You just get along, or wow, you just avoid, conflict. How do you do that? They're just going to see fluidity as you move through.
Yeah. What's interesting is, you're brought up to be nice to people, be respectful to people, say thank you, say please. And in the workplace, everybody does that for the most part. And, good job. Or I recommended you for this because I think you're good at this. This is your forte. Thank you so much, please. But very rarely do you hear those kind of things where it's like, okay, pause. I'm looking at you, and here are some things about you.
Yeah.
I'm not just thanking you for something you did for me or asking you to do something for me. We're not in a rush to go anywhere. Nothing is due, but I'm going to take the moment, even between things, and just pause. And I found myself doing that more during the pandemic, just because I think it was like missing people. So when I finally started getting back around to people, now it's just easy. I get in the habit of just kind of pausing and just saying something like that to people. Not staring into their eyes or anything like that. But I think,
no.
I think it stems, and not that you were saying that you should do it that way, but I think it stems from the fact that, like with the pandemic, we all went home March 2020 and didn't see people for a while. You don't know when that's going to happen. So if you've learned those lessons, when you get that opportunity to be around great people, it's like, I want them to know. And I think that's a major reason for me having this podcast is I want these people, I want my guests, I want you, my authors, non-authors, to know like what you're doing is whatever you're doing, I want to learn about. I want to support you in any way I can and get your message out there, there's just so much value, like you said, in giving, but especially not in passing, but really taking that initiative in that moment and making that real effort, authentic effort to just show somebody, to hold up a mirror and say, there are moments to use it with people that won't shut the hell up. Hesha, absolutely. But even just taking that moment whenever you can to hold up a mirror just so someone feels seen and again validated is powerful.
It is. Well, first of all, we appreciate, as authors, we appreciate what you're doing, John, because it helps get the message out there. And the beautiful thing about that is it works with just making people feel good about themselves. It works with dealing with difficult people. And what it also works with is you have no idea the struggle somebody else is going through. You have no idea. When I do a big speech, I always say, how many people feel fully, completely validated and appreciated in their lives? Show of hands. You get like, 10%, right? We all feel isolated, unappreciated, unvalued, unseen. It's just part of the human condition. So if anyone's listening here and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's really where I do most of my stuff. I have a Facebook page also, but mainly it's LinkedIn. And I've been posting 2 or 3 things a week and little challenges and little ways to practice this. And a couple of weeks ago, I posted a validation challenge, and I've had a lot of people just marvel at it. So, and anyone listening and you want to take this challenge, all you do is you make sure that you validate 2 random strangers every single day. Has to be random, has to be strangers. So you don't get anything from it. It's not my employee or my neighbor or my kid or my boss. It's random strangers, which means you have to stop. You got to look at somebody. You got to notice something about them. So something as simple as you're in a store and you're in the checkout line with someone and you turn around and you see this person and they smile and just go, my, what a wonderful smile you have. That just made me happy. You made that person's day. How about somebody at the checkout girl who doesn't look at you, but she's, you can say, you know what, my goodness, you play that thing like a violin. You're so efficient. She will melt in front of you. You have no idea the level of misery people are going through in their lives. If you do that, first of all, what you get is way more than what you give. I'm telling you, everything will shift around you. People will look at you and thank you. And what a great day you gave me. You'll get goosebumps. It will lift you up. It's a remarkable thing. And I tell you, I practice what I preach. I do that. I do it all the time. Like all the time. And it comes back to me in way more than I give out.
Yeah, I grin only because I picked that up from my dad. My dad was the type where if we're like waiting in line at a restaurant and, he would just go up and talk to anybody or just say hi or come. So I've picked that up from him. And it is amazing when you do it and you can tell that people aren't used to it because they're kind of caught off guard. But then they crack a smile, whatever it may be,
Right.
whether it is a grocery store, whether it is at Starbucks, whatever it may be. Even my favorite is like if you're both going through something like waiting too long or you see something happen in front of you and you comment to each other and just laugh.
Yeah.
Just something like that is just incredible. But if you throw people that you don't know a compliment, it's amazing how sometimes they don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Because there's always, okay, why are you saying that? What else? And it's just like, no, just throwing out the compliment or whatever it may be. I love those moments because they're just like these little ripple effects of just putting things in motion. Micro interactions is what one of my other authors had spoken about, just the power of those. One of those changed his life.
I love that you do a micro interaction. That's great.
It might, I got to go back and check the words, but it was something like that where it's like micro, it changed his life where he wasn't sure about something. He was racing in the airport to catch a plane to go to a speaking engagement and somebody commented on his hustle and it just made him smile and it just changed his attitude for that entire trip. Like little things like that.
You can have, that's why back to what you said, how people don't want to do anything because they think they can't do something big. You have no idea. You do one small thing and that other person does something small and then the other person does some great thing. Or you did something small that affected a person, they decided to stop drinking and maybe stop hitting their kid. You really have no idea the ripple effect. And so, Albert Einstein said, there's only 2 ways to live in the world, as if nothing is magic and as if everything is magic. I choose to live as everything is magic. The glass is always half full for me. no matter what I have to deal with, and I've had plenty of garbage in my life. I told you I was raised very difficultly. And thank God for a lot of therapy to help me, survive all that, is as much as I can do to raise things up, I get raised up too. And it makes our society better, our place better, everything we're doing. So everyone listening, you are a powerful, glorious being that can listen. You can hear this. You can read books. You can see, you can walk, you can speak. Whatever it is that you can do is glorious and to be celebrated. It's just a better way of living life, and life will be richer and happier as a result. I promise. I promise.
Hesha, in wrapping up, is there anything that and thank you so much for everything you shared about the book. I love that you went into some of the examples from your career, but at the same time, just speaking about being human. You know what I mean? It's so basic. So much of what I've incorporated into my writing or posting on social media is just like, because of the pandemic, you see the need for it more than ever. Just being human.
Yeah.
And how much of the bullshit in life we could avoid for ourselves, for others, if we just be human. And
Yeah.
you're not giving away the store.
Yeah.
It's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you give, you will get back in some, because it's not a selfish thing, but it pays to feel good, like that sensation you get about doing your part and just being a great human being. So I thank you so much for connecting all those pieces.
And I also want to, I'm not Pollyanna. There are people that
Of
are
course.
really negative and toxic, and you need to have strong boundaries against them. Okay, you should do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, I'd love for people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a webpage, holdingthecalm.com. And if you sign up, I don't sell the mailing list or anything like that, but I send out little tidbits and stuff all the time to folks. I have little 1-minute videos, and when I think of cool things or how to deal with current issues, how to handle stuff like that right now. And if you get the book, if you'd be kind enough to go online to Amazon and leave a review, that helps the search algorithm. And I'd love to hear from people and their experiences of these things, because it helps keep my energy up out there thumping the grasses, because I have to do that too. Life is, and I'm honest, life is a jungle. There's nice watering holes and there's dangerous watering holes, right? So how can you craft your life to be around a nice watering hole and protect yourself? Because there are predators, there are sociopaths, there are crazy people, there are difficult things, but it's not the majority. We think of it as the majority, but it's not. So how to cage that and make the rest of your life rich and beautiful? Yes. Yes. Hold the calm. Yes.
Absolutely. I love that message. Just that, we're not being Pollyannas. It's not all perfect. And there is a time and place to kind of just cut things off. But I love the overall message of this is you sharing to people that they have more control than they know. They have more power than they know. So thank you for your time, Hesha. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for interviewing me, and everyone for listening.
And again, Hesha's book is Holding the Calm, The Secret to Resolving Conflict and Diffusing Tension. I really appreciate her time with me. If there's anything that I might have missed, we're limited on time, please reach out. Let me know. I'll share all of Hesha's social media. We're connected on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, let me know. Reach out. I'll reach out to her, see if I can get some feedback or additional wisdom from her. In the meantime, thank you for watching and listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.